Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'll be showing you how to make a chocolate pie. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and today I am so excited to be sharing another carefully tested, well-researched, and perfected recipe. This chocolate pie has actually been on my website for quite a long time now. It is one of my most popular pie recipes and my personal favorite pie recipe. I think you're going to absolutely love it, so let's go ahead and get started. Now the first thing you're going to need is one prepared blind baked pie crust. I am using my blind baked homemade pie crust, and this is in a 9-inch pie plate, though you could go slightly larger and use a 9.5 or even 10-inch pie plate if you prefer. Going to set this aside for now, and we'll come back to that once we have our filling ready. Now today's recipe is primarily made on the stovetop, but there are a couple things I want to get together before we head over there. For starters, you are going to need a medium-sized saucepan, and in this we're going to combine 1.5 cups of granulated sugar, 5 tablespoons of cornstarch, and a heaping 1/4 teaspoon of salt. You can use table salt or fine sea salt. Now we'll whisk these ingredients together, and we're just going to set them aside for now. We'll come back to that in just a second. And then in a large measuring cup or mixing bowl, we are going to combine 2 cups of whole milk, which I have measured out right here, and 1 cup of heavy cream. Heavy cream or heavy whipping cream will work fine here. Now, along with our milk and cream, we are going to need 5 large egg yolks. Now, the easiest way to separate the egg yolks from the whites, you're definitely going to want to do this in a separate dish. I'm just going to use the cup that I had my milk in, or my cream in. We'll just crack our egg, and we'll pass that yolk back and forth from one side of the shell to the other until we've completely dropped out that white. If you have any little stringy white bits, those are proteins in there, you can just use the shell to kind of scrape them off. We don't need those in our pie filling. We'll take our egg yolks and we'll add it to our milk and cream. And just repeat until you have added 5 egg yolks. Now, I'm just going to be discarding my egg whites today, but I do have a couple of recipes that I will link to in the recipe description in case you want to save your egg whites and use them to make something else. A lot of recipes that use egg whites. So once you have your milk and your cream and your egg yolks combined, we're just going to use a whisk to whisk everything together because you want to make sure you get those egg yolks nicely broken up. Now grab that saucepan with your sugar and your cornstarch and your salt, and while whisking the saucepan, we are just going to gradually add this milk and cream mixture into the saucepan. And you do want to do this slowly. I'm just going to stop here and make sure everything's getting well combined. This helps eliminate the possibility of having any lumps in your pie filling, any lumps from the cornstarch. We'll add the rest of our mixture, and you should have a nice, smooth mixture in your saucepan. We'll take this over to our stovetop in just a second, but there are a couple of other things you want to have ready to go before we go over to the stovetop. The first thing is 6 ounces of chocolate. Now, I recommend using 60% chocolate for this recipe. I think it is the perfect balance of bitter and sweet. You could go even sweeter and use semi-sweet chocolate, or you could use a higher percentage chocolate that would be even more bitter. I think 60% is the sweet spot. So I have 6 ounces here, and I'm just going to coarsely chop this with a knife. And I'll place this in a bowl. And you want to have that chopped and ready to go before you go over to the stovetop. In addition to the chocolate, I have 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter, and I've cut this into tablespoon-sized pieces. And I also have 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract measured out. We don't need those just yet, we just want to make sure that you have them ready. Additionally, you are going to need a heat-proof bowl, medium or large-sized heat-proof bowl. And you want to have a fine mesh strainer because we're going to pour the filling through the strainer to catch any lumps or tiny bits of cooked egg that form in the filling. So you want to have those ready to go as well. Okay, now we can take our saucepan over to the stovetop, and we'll set it on the stovetop, and we're going to turn that to medium heat. Now we'll whisk this mixture frequently. I pretty much do it constantly. We're going to do this until it thickens. Now how long this takes really depends on your stovetop and even the pot that you're using. I find it usually takes between 5 and 10 minutes for this to thicken for me. One thing you do not want to do not increase the heat of your stovetop to speed things along, because what will happen is your sugar won't melt properly, your eggs are going to cook, your mixture is not going to thicken the way it should. You will either have a gross scrambled egg mess, or you're going to have a runny, watery pie filling. So just have a little patience here. Now it should be pretty obvious to you once the mixture has thickened. It happens pretty quickly. So what will happen is your whisk is going to start leaving trails. It's going to go from being a very thin liquid in the pot to being like pudding. I don't know if you can see here, but my whisk is leaving trails. If I pick it up, it's pudding falling off of it, not just liquid. Let me switch over to a spatula here, and I want you to see how it's coating the spatula. This is nice and thick. So we can go ahead and remove this from our heat right now. All right, now immediately we are going to add our chopped chocolate, our butter, and our vanilla extract. And we're just going to stir everything together until both the chocolate and the butter are completely melted and you have a beautiful, silky smooth chocolate pudding filling. All right, now this looks silky smooth as it is, but there's a good chance there are little bits of egg, especially if you didn't get all the proteins off your egg yolks, or maybe teeny tiny clumps of cornstarch in here. So I highly recommend pouring this filling through a fine mesh strainer into a heat-proof bowl. Now, I don't like to force anything through with a spatula because that kind of defeats the point, but I do want to make sure you can see what I have here. As you can see, there are teeny tiny little lumps in here. Those are little tiny bits of egg. Totally normal, but we don't want them in our pie filling. So we have strained them out and we can just discard this. Now I like to let this pie filling cool for a little bit before I add it to my pie crust. I'll just stir it occasionally for 10 minutes, maybe even 15 minutes to give it a little bit of time to cool down. You do want to make sure you stir it occasionally, otherwise the skin is going to start to form on top. Now at this point, we can go ahead and add our pie filling right to our prepared pie crust. Get it all in there, and I like to smooth out the top with my spatula. Now for our chocolate pie, the filling is very much a pudding, but it's going to thicken up as it chills in the refrigerator. We're going to need to chill it for at least 6 hours, preferably overnight. And I know this seems to be a subject of contention, but I do not like a skin to form on top of my chocolate pie. I know some people do, but since I don't, if you don't, you'll want to take a piece of plastic wrap and just lay this directly against the surface of the pie. You want to make sure that plastic wrap is touching the chocolate pudding. Now we'll take this to our fridge and we'll let it chill before we can dig in. Fortunately, last night I prepared a pie that we are going to cut into right now so you can see exactly how it's supposed to look. Let's cut in. And look how rich and creamy that filling is. Oh, I love this pie. Of course, no pie is complete without a nice swirl of homemade whipped cream. I'll make sure to link to my whipped cream recipe, which just takes this pie to the next level. And that is how you make the absolute best homemade chocolate pie. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's recipe. If you try this one out, please leave me a comment and let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. It's so good.